Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. Doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries, brokers, and M&A experts from across the country. Joining me on this segment is Cress Diglio. He's a managing partner with Calder Associates. Cress, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Cress, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are those types of clients that you specialize in working with?
Sure, I've been a business intermediary for 23 years here in the state of Florida, but I work mainly around the country. But in the Southeast, our customers are typically lower middle market type companies, revenues between $5 and $50 million, and we do a lot of work in the construction or construction related type companies. We do a lot of home healthcare type businesses, and really we specialize in assisting and helping people before they go to market. So when we go to market, we can maximize the dollar amount that they're able to get.
So, when a business owner is considering selling today, what do they know? How well informed are they when they reach out to you? And what kind of questions and concerns do they have?
Yeah, business owners, they spend a lot of their time building a business that takes care of themselves, their family, and everything in their lives. Very little time on the exit of their business. So when they call, the statistics show that most business sellers are first-time sellers. And so they call with an idea. Well, I Googled it and I saw online that a company like mine sold for a 10 multiple. And I said, yeah, but that was $100 million company. You're doing $1 million a year, and so your multiple will not be so great. So I think they call with an understanding of what they need to retire, but not necessarily understanding what it's worth, or not really planning towards the exit of so they can maximize again their potential on the way out. So I think that's really where people like myself tend to help, is if we could talk to someone before they're ready to sell, we can really help them gear up towards that big time in their life when the business that they've worked so hard to build, now they're going to sell it. They've got one shot at getting it right.
So, as you mentioned, they don't know what they don't know. Oftentimes, it's the first time they're going through this process. So, let's talk about that a little bit. How far in advance, when somebody's considering selling their business, how far in advance should they start thinking about it, planning it? And what are the big things they got to start getting in place to properly prepare to sell their business?
So I teach many courses for the IBBA, the International Business Brokers Association, where I'm a past chairman. And people ask me this question all the time: when should I think about selling the business? And I say, when you start the business. And it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's true, because you never know. Your path might be, I'm going to sell 10 years from now. But then life happens. You could have to relocate. You could have an illness. Something can happen, good or bad, that means you're going to leave the market and you need to sell. So I often tell business owners at all times their books and records should be as clean as can be. And I'll give you an example. Someone says, well, I run a lot of things through the business that I can't document, and so what happens when you can't document it? One, the bank won't accept it. So when someone goes to get a loan, it's hard to show what you're truly earning. But they do it with the hopes of, if they're in a 30%, 35% tax bracket, whatever it might be, 20, 25%, they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to save, $50,000. I'm going to save, the tax that I would have to pay on that. But when they go, so that might be on $50,000, you're at 20%, what are you at? 10 grand. So, at the end of the day, when you go to sell your business, businesses sell for multiple of earnings. So if that same $50,000 was on your bottom line and your company sold for 3 or 4 times, that could be $150,000 to $200,000. So you saved 20, but you really missed out on, potentially a lot more than that. So books and records are the absolute most key thing you can always want to have in line. Customer concentration, no one customer that is too much of a represents too much of the revenue of your company, because that's going to bring the value down of your company. The amount of work that you personally do as an owner, can you be replaced? So when you step aside, do you have people that can take over for you, or a good team in place? So those are probably the key components. But absolutely, the first thing in line has to be your financials.
Great points. The inspiration for the series has been the headlines of The Great Resignation. Now, have you found that that really has brought more buyers into the marketplace? And if so, in your area, has that motivated any sellers that perhaps have been on the fence about selling?
We were talking a number of years ago about this great tsunami of sellers that was going to happen because all the baby boomers were going to retire. But then we had COVID and a pandemic, and they were pushing off their retirement. And then in the state of Florida, we have a very unique thing because we have thousands of people moving here on a daily basis. Like at one point during the pandemic, it was 1,000 people a day moving to the state of Florida. So you had people that were coming from all over the United States, predominantly in the Northeast, coming down to the state of Florida, and they weren't quite ready to retire. So they needed to do something, whether get a job or buy a business. So business sales in the state of Florida kind of skyrocketed, kind of like home sales and everything else, because of the demand that came in. But generically speaking, when we talk about looking at everything all together, I think you have a lot of people that went through the pandemic and they said, life is short. Is this really what I want to do the rest of my life? Or do I really want to answer to this? Do I want to do that? And they started putting their mind together and say, you know what? I'm going to resign from this way of life and what I'm doing, and I'm going to go in a different direction, something that's more meaningful or captivating for me. But I think really what I found is you have a big effect of all combined, the perfect storm. The baby boomers looking to finally say, look, we've got to get out. It's time to retire. We've pushed it off. To the demand in certain marketplaces are so high that the multiples have crept up, and it's a good time to sell.
Terrific insight. So for the sellers, when you start to work with sellers on their businesses, do you find any common mistakes that they're making as they prepare their business for sale, or any pitfalls that you could warn people about?
Yeah, I think they need to be open minded. A lot of times it's their baby. So everyone thinks their baby's the cutest baby in the world, and it might not be, right? So as the business is the same way, you could show them statistics and you could talk about multiples, companies like yours sell for 3 to 3.5 times, but mine is special. Well, I understand yours is special, but there's only so much more someone's going to pay for that special business. So I think really just getting their expectations in line of what the market is, because the market changes constantly. So really getting down to, and then also taking away the fact that, they may have had a business that thrived during COVID. Well, there are a lot of smart buyers out there. They're saying, well, you thrived during COVID, but sooner or later we're going to have to normalize that to where maybe business should have been. So the buyers are evaluating things differently. So I think from a seller's perspective, they have to understand that the market changes constantly. They have to keep up to speed with the market and understanding what their business really is worth in the marketplace. And again, no one can give you an exact dollar amount of what it's worth, but a professional should be able to give you a range of value of what your company is worth.
Cress, what inspired you to become a business intermediary and help people with their businesses? How did you get started in the field?
I owned a paint contracting business in the Atlanta, Georgia area in the late 90s, and my dad was a serial entrepreneur, and he was looking for businesses in Orlando, and he couldn't find any. And this one gentleman said, "Look, you ask all the right questions, you should become a business broker." So my dad became a business broker, and in the first year, he became like the number one agent in the entire state of Florida. So he kept telling me, "You need to get into business brokerage, business brokerage." So I was visiting one time, and growing up in family business, I started seeing what he was doing, and I just fell in love with it. And so you would think I would have done what I was going to do in Florida and sell my business, but I was so anxious to get back here. I basically shut down my business in Georgia. Back then, I turned over the beeper. That's how old, late 90s, right? To a competitor of mine. So just pay me a referral fee on everything that comes in. I've got something better I'm going to do. So I got involved in business brokerage, and I never looked back. And now, as many years as I've been in, part of what I enjoy doing the most is training new business brokers. I wrote a course for the IBBA that says thriving and surviving, not thriving, not just surviving your first year in business brokerage. Because so many people would say, I just want to survive my first year. And I'd be like, why do you want to just survive? Don't you want to thrive? Don't you want to do well? And we put together an entire course that we wrote for that. So I enjoy giving back. If I can make someone's life easier, through my experiences, that's what I do. And I got a lot of help along the way. So I figure it's always good to give back.
Before you did that, were you going to go from Atlanta to move to Florida to open a painting business in Florida before that? Or what were you going to do?
No, I was perfectly content in Georgia. But
So you were
again,
just
I
visiting at the
looked at
time,
what.
and then you discovered
Yeah,
the
I was
business.
visiting mom and dad and the family, and he kept telling me. So I went to the office and I kind of experienced what he was doing. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. I could do this.
Terrific. Crest, before I ask you my last question, is there anything that I didn't think to ask that you feel is important to share in regards to selling a business or even buying one in today's economy?
So if you're going to sell a business, I think the biggest takeaway I can give a seller is it's never too soon to start. Even if you don't want to sell today, reach out to a business intermediary in your area. You can go to ibba.org and you can see the certified business intermediaries that are in your area. Talk with them and talk to them about what your plan is, what you're hoping to do. Because again, life can happen. We had one client that showed up because he had a terminal illness, and he said, "You've been working with me for years. I'm still not ready to sell, but I have to." So we wound up being able, because he was in position and primed to sell, we were able to sell the business for him. The great news was he beat cancer and he's still alive, but very happy with the sale. So always be prepared for the sale of your business, even if it's not time to sell. And on a buy side, I think when you're a buyer looking for a business, you have to understand you have one chance at getting it right because you're going to invest your life savings in a business. And a business isn't like a house. You buy a house today, you decide you don't like the neighborhood, you're not going to live there. You could sell it pretty much for what you bought it for, minus some fees that you might have to pay to agents. But a business is different. You buy a business and decide the next day, the next week, the next month you don't like it. It's very difficult to sell that because you don't have the history or the books and records, and a buyer gets scared. A new buyer's going to get scared. Why would I buy something that you've only owned for a couple of months? So you're looking at then deeply discounting the value potentially of the company. So you have to make sure you align yourself with someone that's really going to understand your needs and interests and your wants, and not just spend all your money. And then make sure you're truly buying the right business with good books and records, a history, and make sure it's something that you're passionate about, something that your skill set, can enhance what the business already has.
Crest, for folks listening right now who are interested in selling their business or perhaps buying a business and would like to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, I'm going to give you my cell phone number, which I don't mind sharing because everyone calls me. I own two companies. One's Calder Associates, and we deal with lower middle market companies. So companies that are going to sell between $5 and $50 million. And then I also have another company called CII Business Brokers that's been around for 30 years, was my dad's. And I keep that because I deal with businesses that are on the Main Street side. So whether you own a small business or a large business, I'm able to help you, and we're able to do that. And we have people that work with us that can assist. But it's real simple. My number is 407-709-9605. I have a very unique name, Cress Diglio. If you Google Cress Diglio, you're either going to find me or my father, but you'll find me, and it'll lead you to my website and all sorts of information. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, and if I can help in any way, I always love to. I probably give away more free information than I get paid to do, and I'm happy to do so.
Awesome. Crest, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you for having me on the show, and I really appreciate the great service that you do for your listeners.
That was Cress Diglio, managing partner at Calder Associates. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.